let's get into this cursor. So there are different types of cursor, but we'll see all the types of cursor which you generally come across. So what exactly a cursor? So in the PLSQL, a cursor is a placeholder which will hold the resultant of a SQL query. A cursor is a placeholder, or I can say a cursor is a data type which holds a resultant of a SQL query in the PLSQL. So because PLSQL on its own cannot get the data from the database. PLSQL cannot get the data from database. They have to use the cursor, and of course you require a SQL query to get the data from database. So that is why this cursor came into picture. So it's just nothing but it's a placeholder to get the data from database and store the data into this cursor variable. And as a developer, we can just use that cursor variable to integrate the data and get the appropriate information. Okay. So overall in the cursors, there are two types of cursor we come across. One is implicit cursor and other is explicit cursor. So the purpose of both of them are same. So the purpose of both of them are same, but it depends upon how exactly you want to use it and like how many rows you want to retrieve. Generally, if you consider the implicit cursor, if you see here, it is declared for all DML operation. User has no control over it, and the PLSQL refers most recent implicit cursor as the SQL cursor. So the basic property of the implicit cursor is implicit cursor. For the implicit cursor, there is no need to declare. There is no need to perform any open operation. There is no need to perform any fetch operation or close operation. That is why it is called implicit. By implicit, like when you just write a simple implicit cursor to see in the PLSQL program, by default it will get executed. And coming to the explicit cursor, one more property of implicit is implicit cursor is capable enough to get only one record. It cannot get multiple records at all. Explicit cursor will be used when you want to, like when you want to retrieve multiple data, when you want to retrieve multiple rows. That is where we have to use the explicit cursor. And the name says that you have to have a, the programmer will have a full control on that. So user can, developer can write a logic to open it, fetch it, close it. Okay. And apart from that, it is capable enough to handle multiple rows. Okay, so try to see both of them. Let me go to the syntax. So yeah. So this is the syntax of an implicit cursor. If you see here, it says select query. This is the normal select query what we use it, but the only extra thing which you come across is you will have an into clause here. You will have an into clause. So what we are trying to do is we will be writing this particular statement in our begin block, not in the declare section. We will be writing this particular logic in the begin block. Okay. We'll be writing this particular logic in the begin block and we'll be trying to perform the appropriate functionality. So let us do one simple example. Okay, let me show you one example. So now what I'm going to do is let us assume that let me open one more. Let us say I would like to get my item number based on the item ID. So I'll go to MDL system item V. So what I will do is I'll just pass the inventory ID. I'll just pass the inventory ID and organize my. What I will do is that as of now a hard code where inventory ID is equal to 45 and organization ID is equal to 204. So now what I want to retrieve is I want to retrieve item number, followed by, and there is one more column, right? Description or something. Yeah. Okay. So now let us say I would like to retrieve these two particular information from the database. So what is the thing I'm trying to do is I'll try to execute. Let's see, when you execute this particular SQL query in a normal SQL developer, what it is trying to do? It is showing the resultant in the query result area. It is trying to show the result in the query result area. But now our logic is we would like to execute this particular SQL query from the PLSQL area. So I'll copy the same query, just observe the difference. What I will do is I'll go to the declare section, begin section, and end section. So if you just try to run the program, so now here like I just mentioned my SQL query here, right? So this will not work. This will not work because when you execute a SQL query inside the begin block, there should be a placeholder to handle those values. Now, if you observe here, our query will return one row with the two columns, right? It will return only one row, but two columns it will return. So what we have to do is we have to declare some variables, temporary placeholders to handle that value. Let us say, and what I will do is, I don't know the data type of this one, so I'll just go like this. So not to have confusion, what we do is we are not aware of what is the data type which is used by that particular column name, we can just use like this syntax: table name dot column name percentile type. So since it does not need to mention any data type here. This is what what dynamically it will try to find out what is the data type of that particular column, and your variable will hold that particular data type. Okay. And now what I have to do here is I just need to mention into clause followed by how many columns it is returning. It is returning two columns. I'll mention those columns, item number and comma followed by description. So this is the extra thing you have to do. You have to just mention the into clause. And this particular syntax we call it as implicit cursor. It's called implicit cursor. So let us print the data also. Let's say I'd like to print it. Image output dot underscore line item number. Description. Right? And print it. We got the output, right? Item number is changed and the description also we got it. Now let us say as of
Yeah,
now,
one question.
yeah, sure.
Uh, if the select statement is returning only one column, do I need to use implicit cursor?
Whenever you see whether if your query is returning one row, one column, or multiple rows, always you have to use a cursor. But in our case, what we are trying to do is we have written a SQL query which is returning two columns, right? Either if it returns one column or two columns, whatever it is. If it returns only one row, see now here if you observe how many columns it was returning, it is returning two columns but only one row, right? If it returns only one row, we have to use implicit only. Now let us say if you want to catch only one item, if you want to mention only one item, what you have to do? Very simple. You just need to mention only one column here.
No, what I was asking is if it is returns one row, only one row and one column only, then
Yeah.
you have to mention what this select into, or you can just put a simple select statement
No, no,
there.
into is mandatory. Into is mandatory because whether it returns one row, one column, or one row, two columns, or n number of columns, based on the number of columns which you mention the select, that number of columns should be available in input. That is mandatory.
Okay.
Okay.
Can we dynamically enter this inventory item ID and organization ID?
Yeah, so that we can do. Last time we have seen how do you bind it, right? That all we can do. Last time we have seen, if you observe here, let us say P underscore item ID, isn't it? Right? P underscore RK. That's it. Colon. That's it, right? Now just run the program. It will ask you what is item ID. Let us say 1024 and the organization ID is 204. That's it. So it says that no data found because there is no item with that particular item ID. So first of all, find out appropriate item ID. Let us say we'll pass a valid item ID. Okay, I'll just pass 73. 73 is my item ID. Okay, and 204 is my organization ID. So come on, one minute. 73, sorry, 73 they have it or not? Yeah, sorry. 73 also does not have this one. So 73 208 I'll pass it, okay? I'll pass 73 as well as 208. 73 and 208. So it is not printing, right?
I think that server
Okay,
output, I think.
let us enable this better. Sorry?
Mm.
Let me disconnect one. Okay. Let me connect again. Let me connect again. Refresh. Now 73 is very and but
Mm.
item description maybe it is not available, so it is not present. Oh, sorry. We have removed it, right? Item description. That's why we could not get the item
Mm.
description. So if you want item
Okay.
description, you have to just mention that. The only thing is, they see why we have to mention that number of columns in the into clause, because see, it is returning some data, there should be placeholder to handle it, else it cannot return it, right? That is the
Mm.
problem. That is why what the number based on the number of columns, based on the number of columns what you mentioned in the select clause, that number of things you have to mention in the clause. Okay. And one more thing is, like here, okay, let me get into another sample. So this sample is clear, right? In this one, what you're trying to do. So this syntax you are clear? This one, line number 2 and 3. Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. So
Syntax, yeah.
okay, fine. So we'll get into one more sample. Okay, I'll get into one more sample now. Now what we do is in this one, let us say uh, we'll get order number. Let us say for a given header ID, I want to find the number of lines. For a given header ID, I want to find the number of lines. I just pass the header ID. I want the output from the PLSQL program to return the number of lines. I'll say OE order line. Okay, this is my table name. Now I'll just pass my header ID, where header ID is equal to some particular value 14711. Okay. Now here what I want to do is yeah, this one header ID this one. Right. So now what I want to do is I just want to write a program which will return the number of lines, nothing but count. I just want the count. Okay. So what I can do, so if you want to write it, first of all you have to write, always see when you want to design a PLSQL program, first make sure that you design your SQL statements. It's this. Now I got the count using this particular syntax. What I will do is, so I'll go here, I'll write my PLSQL program, declare the underscore count number begin. So what I can do, I can write the same field here, secondary. But here what I have to mention, I have to mention count into followed by the v underscore count, and then you can fill the value here. Okay, got it?
Yes.
And we got the number of lines is 4. So if you want to get the value from here in the at runtime, what we can do? Let's first of all try to pass a valid header ID, else it may raise the exception. I'll show you how to handle that exception also, but initially what we do is just pass the valid header ID now. Let us say I'll take this header ID at runtime now. C underscore header ID, pass the value. Got it? It is also having a 4.
Mm.
So now let us say assume that if you're trying to pass invalid header ID, let's say pass junk value. Now what is happening? So it is not giving error, right? It is not giving an error. Simply says that no number of lines equal to 0. Here, if you observe, the count function always, it will not get into exception. Let us say even if you pass any junk value, it will return one row. Always it will return one row. Observe here. Got it?
Yeah.
But in the earlier case, let us say if you pass a junk value here, what will happen? If the header ID is not available, it will not return any row. So in the implicit cursor, the logic is if your query does not return any data, it will get into exception. The query does not return any data, it will get into exception. So that was happened in the earlier case. So if you observe here, I'll just run it again. So what I will do is I'll pass a null value. I'll just make it as null. Okay, I just select it as null and see you'll get some type of exception now. You'll get some type of exception. Let me say no data form. Isn't it? It is returning no data form exception. So that is why what we have is, if you remember, we had totally overall in the PLSQL we have four blocks. One is declare, begin, and in the begin section we have one more block called exception. we'll have a separate session of exception for time being. So what we can do is we can write an exception handling game, exception, then other than give us underscore output dot underscore line, exception occurs, okay, and error message also we can type in here. We can type the error message, SKERR. Okay. Now click on it.
Mm.
Can you see? Now it's completed. See, now what is happening is your program is not giving any error here. It simply says that it is completed at runtime. In the output, it is properly showing what is the error it occurred. It clearly says what is the exception occurred, and we can write appropriate information to the business user, saying that clearly saying that why it occurred.
Okay.
And one more example. Okay? One more example I'll show you, and then we can get into another one. So what we do, let us say what we want to do is, let us say I'd like to get all my employee data for the given department. I'd like to get all my employee data for a given department. So using implicit cursor, can we get all this information? Now for a given department 10, I have 3 employees, but I want to print 3 employee numbers using my implicit cursor. So let's see what is the error it will throw you. Okay. What I want to do is I just want to retrieve only employee number. I want to retrieve 3 employee numbers. Based on the department ID. Okay. Right. So till this part we are clear. So here what I will do is I just mention into clause. Okay. So will it work?
No, it will not work.
Yeah, it's not work. It says that see the error. What is it showing? The exact fetch returns more than number of rows. The exact fetch returns more than number of rows. And if you observe here, it is just giving some error, right? It is not clearly saying that anonymous block completed. It just says an error. So for not to get error, these kind of errors, what we do is exception, then other than, and we'll clearly say that what is the error occurred. For user understandable purpose, we'll say exception occurred, okay, and then we'll say what is the error message. Now see the difference here. When you run the program, the script output it will not give any error. It simply says error exists. Sorry?
Mm.
The script output, it clearly completes the program without having any issues. But in the debugger's output, it will tell you, because what will happen is that line number 5 faces an error, so automatically it will go into exception block. Automatically it will go into exception block, and it will just print what is there here. So in the exception also we can handle what type of exception. In the exception we have a different set of conditions. When SQL data not found, when when arithmetic error, there are a lot number of conditions we have it. But now, as of now, what we're trying to do is if any exception occurs, just simply get into exception block and print the error message. So that is what we are trying to do in this case.
Yeah, so either in after exception you return when others then. Is
Right.
it a mandatory thing? Is it a
Yes.
mandatory thing or?
Yeah, see here, like in the exception block, what you have to do is you have to mention what type of exception you are expecting, okay, and based on that, what you want to print it. So in our case, what I'm trying to do is, whenever I'm expecting some set of my exception name here is others. Why I mention others? Because let us assume that I don't know what is the error it is occurring. So I just want to handle it. If any exception occurs also, I just want to get here, and if it's satisfied, just then print it. If you don't mention when condition here,
Mhm.
yes. Sorry, it will not work.
So
It's
when
not.
others is a mandatory thing, eh?
Yes. When it's mandatory, instead of others, we can mention appropriate exception type. When no data found, there are
Okay.
a lot number of things which are there. When is always
Okay.
mandatory, there instead of mentioning others, we can mention the valid user defined or maybe Oracle defined exception name. This is the exception is totally a different concept. We'll get into that sometime later. Okay.
Uh,
Initially, we'll assume that when others then is the exception we want to use it. Okay.
okay. And Sridhar, how do you display that numbering in the left? Yeah, I can see 1, 2, 3, then line number
Okay.
in the SQL. Whenever I use, I don't get that number.
Yeah, here you have an
Like
option called toggle. Just mention this toggle line numbers.
toggle lines. Okay. Okay.
Okay. So now what we do is like we'll get into our explicit cursor. Okay. So we'll also discuss sometime later again. See, this cursor is using usage of cursor in a PLSQL program is always a common thing. We cannot escape from cursor. You have to use every time. Okay. Now what I will do is I'll get into explicit cursor now. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So let's see the syntax of explicit cursor. So this all. Yeah. So considering the explicit cursor, the syntax what exactly it says is we have to declare a cursor variable in the explicit. We have to declare a cursor in the declared section. We have to perform open operation. Then we have to perform fetch operation. Then we have to perform close operation. So the declaration of the cursor will be done in the declared section, and the remaining all operations will be done in the begin section. So these set of operations are done implicitly for the implicit cursor. That is why it was called implicit. For the explicit cursor, we have to do all these operations explicitly by the developer. That is why it is called explicit. And if you see the syntax here, what exactly the syntax is in the declared section, we have to mention a cursor keyword followed by user-defined cursor name. It can be any name, user-defined cursor name, followed by is a keyword, followed by the valid select statement, followed by the valid select statement. Okay, if you consider the simple example in the below, cursor followed by department underscore cursor is a cursor name is followed by select class and the normal valid field select department number name as well as location. Right? And if you want to open a cursor, you just need to mention open. Open is a keyword followed by cursor name. Open. So what exactly this open operation will do is the open operation will perform the execution of the cursor, and your cursor variable will hold all the data which is written by the SQL query. Until unless you perform the open operation, the SQL query will not be executed and the cursor will not have any data. So fetch operation is used for the purpose of fetching the data. If you observe, we have into clause here. In the fetch operation, we have into clause. So this fetch operation will fetch only one record at any point of time. See, when I say one record, the record can contain any number of columns. That is why I mentioned here. I'm mentioning here record, not the columns. So it will this fetch will perform fetching of a record one by one. So whenever you perform fetch operation, always it will return only one particular record. Always it return only one set of records. Okay. And in the into clause, make sure that you have to mention that number of columns based on the select query column what you mentioned. Okay. So now the next operation, the closing the cursor. So the closing the cursor is for the purpose of removing the allocated memory for the cursor. Okay. So let's see this particular explicit cursor sample. Okay. So let's consider some requirement and then we can consider. So what we do is now we'll get into this one. Let us say we'll what we do is user will pass the sales order number, user will pass the sales order number and will print. Okay, let me write properly. Take sales order number as input. Okay, print the line type, line number, and some line description or item number what we have in the sales order information, sales order table. We want to consider sales order number as an input and print the line information based on the given sales order number. See, first of all, the sales order line table will not have the sales order header ID, right? We have to perform appropriate join here. So first of all, write a query. So now once you know the requirement, the basic thing you have to do is always make sure that you have a query, then you write the PLSQL program. Because overall the PLSQL program will depends upon the query what we write. So first of all, write the query here, OE order, line solve, OL, OE order, header solve, ONX, dot header ID is equal to line ID. And now what I want to do is I just pass header order number. The expectation is I'll pass an order number here. So first of all, get the order number from the header table. Hey, 1 minute.
Mm.
Sorry, 1 minute.
Yeah.
So the first thing is like once you get a requirement, it is always preferable to write the query and then you have to write your program and nothing but a PHP program. So what you do, let us take some order number and which is a valid one, then we'll see a dynamic stuff. As often will consider hard-coded order number. Let's say this is my order number 4721. I'll pass my order number here. So I'll get the list of lines, right? So here it is not passing any lines. If we take some other order number, hey, sorry, let's see it. There's something wrong, right? It should be header ID, right? We got one line, right? We got one line. Let's take another one. Yeah, we got 5 lines. So I'll consider this particular query, but I don't want all columns. What I want is this. I just want line ID, line type ID. Okay, and instead of
Item number,
yeah, I just number.
order item.
What is the column? Order.
Ordered item.
Correct. Is it correct? Or? Yeah.
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 You don't have to prefix the alias in the first two columns.
Yes, it is not required. I'll tell you. The reason is if the column is unique, let us say, if you observe, just see this one. Now if you just type header ID is available in both the tables. If you don't mention alias, it will get into exception. It is always preferable that you better mention every time. So you not get into any issues. Like
Okay.
now it will not give any error. Okay, let's say that we'll take this particular thing. We'll consider line ID as well as order item. Right? I think description is added this. Will not have description, right? Sir? Will not have description, I guess. They have quantity somewhere, some division, and value, CSP.
Sridhar, give me a minute. Somebody at the door.
Yeah, yeah. Quantity.
Yeah.
Yeah. So let's say like we'll consider this particular program. Okay. Now what I will do is like what query is this one? So I'll try to use this particular query to get the line information. Line information nothing but we'll try to retrieve line ID as well as order item. Okay. So let's write a program which declares begin and to the basic thing which we expect always. And then first thing is we'll just write cursor C with line item, get lines or something is followed by your equal field. Okay. So the only extra thing what you observe is this one. Cursor keyword followed by your cursor name followed by is keyword. That is the only extra thing which you expect when you write in a PLSQL program. Okay. The remaining thing is very simple. What's the way you write in a normal SQL? And after that, this particular select query is returning. It may return multiple rows, but it returns two columns, right? It returns two columns. What I will do is I will say v line ID. Okay. So I prefer this syntax. What you can mention line ID percentage type. Another one is the order item mention order item what percentage type. So based on anything you can use it. It's not that mandatory you have to use only percentage type, anything you can use. And after that, what is the first thing you have to do? Now we have declared a cursor. So declaration is not just enough. You have to perform the remaining fetch operations. We have to mention open. Open is the keyword followed by your cursor name. And after that we have to mention fetch operation, fetch followed by, so now this particular cursor, the cursor, what will happen is this is the place when you perform open operation, what will happen is its query will be executed, SQL query will be executed, and the return data will be saved in the cursor variable. Will be saved in the cursor variable. That is the default operation will be happen. That the default operation will happen. So now what we want to do, we want to perform fetch operation because our SQL, our cursor is having the data. We just need to perform fetch operation. We have to mention fetch keyword followed by cursor name followed by into clause and the list of items here. So what is the thing I mentioned line ID followed by this one. That's it. And then after that, this fetch operation will fetch only one record. We'll see how do you fetch multiple records also, but time being, let us say I'll fetch only one record and just print it whether it prints this value or not.
So you have to print before closing it.
No, no, it can. It will work also. Why? Because we already fetched it and the temporary variables are fully data, right? So it will work.
Yeah.
It will be there.
What I was asking is, can we write the output after closing the lines?
Yes, yes.
That close?
Yeah, yeah, understood. It can. It can. Why? Because fetch operation already fetches the data and it is the real value is available here. You see? So now it is trying to print only one record, right? As I said you, the fetch operation will fetch only one record. It cannot fetch more than one record. The fetch operation cannot fetch more than one record. It will fetch only one record. So then what is the other way we have to write it? What is the other way we have to write it? So what we have to do is we just need to write a loop. Without having the loop, it will not work. I mean to say it will fetch only one record because we can't see here. Now let us say what I will do is let us say I'll close after some square here. I'll perform one more fetch operation now. See, I'll copy the same code. I'll perform one more fetch operation. So line number 20 fetch operation is fetch one record. Line number 24 fetch operation is return one more record. Can you see? But overall, our query was written in multiple lines, right? Overall, our query was written in 5 lines. So I have to perform 5 fetch operations to get all my data. I have to perform 5 fetch operations. But in real time, first of all, you don't know how many records it is written, right? So we can't mention how many fetches we want to do it. It has to be done. It has to be done dynamically. It has to be done dynamically. So that is why we have to use our loop operation to get all the data. So what we do is so to handle that logic, see any loop, whether we consider loop, I mean the while loop, or maybe the basic loop or a for loop, it always has some set of condition, right? Some entry condition or exit condition. In this particular cursor case, what is the entry condition or what is the exit condition? See, conditional wise, like first of all, we don't know how many rows it will return, isn't it? It depends upon the data or depends on the query what we wrote. So we cannot say number of rows is a condition. So that is why what cursor has provided is there are some set of global variables in the cursor. These are called explicit cursor attributes. These are called explicit cursor attributes, which we use it generally to control the behavior of the fetching operation of the cursor. So what we do is we'll use the percentile not found attribute to control the behavior of the cursor. Nothing but we'll try to use a loop operation and we use this particular percentile not found logic to control the exit condition logic. So what we do is now this particular SQL query, what I will do is, so I'll just remove this extra loop, extra this one. And here, before fetch operation, I'll perform loop like this. I'll try to use a basic loop now. In loop, okay. I'll say exit when, what is the cursor name? This cursor name, percentile not found. So what exactly this says is, if the recent fetch does not return any data, see, this condition becomes true when the recent fetch does not return any data. Until unless it always becomes false. Whenever the recent fetch does not return any data, this condition becomes true, then it will come out of the loop. Okay? Got the idea and confusion?
Mm, okay, can you execute it? Once I'll see the
Okay.
execute.
Let me see the result, then we can discuss. Okay? Of course, this is printed twice. I'll tell you the reason also. And apart from that, let me show you one more thing here. What we do is, let us see.
So in this, there is no loop counting, right? it's like saying if after this row, like that, there is nothing, nothing we mentioned there, right?
See, what will happen is the fetch, like generally, like if you observe your query, so what
Hmm.
this query is returning 5 rows, right? So
Yes.
what happens is the open operation executes the query, and the cursor will hold the data. So what will happen is the fetch operation generally points to the first row. What will happen is the fetch operation. When you perform first fetch operation, it will point to this first record, and it will return the first record. Once you perform the fetch operation next time, it will fetch the second record. The fetch operation will point to second record. So it goes on. I'll show you my slide here. Here. This is what generally it points to. By default, the cursor points to this particular first row. When you perform the fetch operation, it will position the cursor pointing to the first record. It will return that record. And if you perform the fetch operation again, it will point to the second record and it will give you the second record. It goes on.
Okay. Okay. So in the begin and end, a cursor is being called multiple times, then it will go sequentially.
Obvious. Yeah.
I mean, that's my question.
Sorry. Come again.
In a between a begin and end, a cursor is being called multiple times. Then it will go sequentially, one, two, three, like that.
See here, when you see the fetch operation is done multiple times, not the cursor here. What happens is your cursor is open only once, right? You perform open
Hmm.
operation. So this cursor is
Hmm.
holding all the data. If this particular cursor CMS for get lines is holding all the data. So now we want to
Hmm.
retrieve the data which is available in the cursor one by one. So I have to perform the fetch operation on the cursor. I have to perform multiple fetch operations on the cursor to get all my data one by one line.
Hmm.
Got it?
Yeah. So is it so now it is actually mimicking the earlier way you did, right? Fetch,
Hello?
right?
Hello? Uh,
Yeah, I'm here.
yeah.
So now even if now in the loop also you have written before also that you are this uh, the fetch operation multiple times, right?
Right,
One, two, three.
right, right.
So now it's mimicking the same thing, right? If when
Yeah,
you
yeah,
put it,
correct. It is doing the same
okay,
operation here.
okay.
It is doing the same thing. But here, like a programmatically, we are doing it rather than rather than we ourselves writing the number of fetches. Automatically, we have
Hmm.
performed the loop. We have performed fetch operation inside a loop. So the loop will take care of it. It does not need to bother about how many times you want to fetch it, how many times you want to perform the fetch operation. That particular logic we are not aware. So that is we kept in a loop, and we have an appropriate condition also here, right? And see here. Now it is returning how many rows? It's returning 5 rows, but the fifth row is getting repeated, right? Can you see?
Hmm.
So it is returning 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, but the fifth row is getting repeated. The reason of getting repeated of the fifth row is what is happening is here after fetching the fifth row, what will happen is the fetch will not fetch any data, nothing but this particular condition will get failed, and it will print what is available already. It will just print what is available already. So that then what we have to do is you just need to mention your exit condition after fetch like this. You just need to mention your exit condition after fetch. So the fifth row will not be repeated. Now the fifth row will not be repeated. So observe this. Got it?
Yeah.
The fifth row is not getting repeated now. Now this is simple cursor like if you want to pass a parameter. Now here what we have done is we are just trying to get the data and we are just perform loop operation and all those basic, very basic ones. So what we do is let us say we would like to pass a dynamic value to the cursor at runtime. We try to pass a dynamic value to the cursor at runtime to get the data. So let's do that. So what I will do is I'll consider one more query now. Which query will consider? Let us say purchase order. Let's start now with try to pass a purchase order. We go here at all. Now what I'll do is I'll pass my purchase order number and I'll try to get my purchase order information. I'll try to get my purchase order information. I just pass my purchase order header number and I want to get my purchase order number, header ID, and then purchase order type. I'll say type of code and what we have. Okay, location ID, shift to location ID, apart from that, any other thing? Okay, current input. So I just want to get these three values. For a given purchase order number, I just want to get all these information. So what is the thing, what I'll consider is my purchase order number, where even one is equal to this value. Okay, it says invalid number. Why? Because it should be varchar, so I just pass the single quote. Now for the given purchase order number, it is written in multiple rows, right? So maybe the organization ID also we have to consider. We have to consider the organization ID also. Now, anyways, what we want to do is we want to consider the purchase order number as an input and try to print all the purchase orders which are matching with this particular number. But but what we want to do is I don't want to hard code my purchase order number, and I want to pass it as a parameter to the cursor. There is a concept called parameterized cursor. Let me show you that. There is a concept called parameterized cursor. Say this cursor. Let's go to so get purchase order data information based on the PO number, right? So we use using this concept to parameterize. So just declare dealing and the basic thing always take the cursor. And here what I will do is I will say in the declare section cursor C get zero data is this is normal stuff. But here what we do is this particular logic is not a correct logic. What we have to do is instead of this one, what I mention is I just mention C underscore P1 number, something like this. And what I will do is this C underscore P1 number is nothing but the cursor parameter. We call it as cursor parameter. You just need to mention a cursor parameter like this. You just need to mention cursor parameter like this, and we have to mention the appropriate data type. If any confusion, what we can mention? Just PO header solve dot segment one. That's the easiest thing always. Segment one dot segment type. Right? Now, what is the remaining logic? So we are trying to get how many columns? Header ID, lookup code, and currency code. And just declare three variables: header ID, lookup code, and currency code. Let us say currency code is always generally related. I'll go with a 5. Lookup code is a string, so I'll go with a 25. Header ID is a number. I'll go with like this. Correct? So then, now here comes the major important part. So from where we pass the purchase order number. So let us say I'll declare one more variable called P1 number, where it has to 250 or something, whatever it is. P1 number, what I will do is I'll consider P1 number as of now like this. I'll pass P1 number, what is the value? 500. And pass P1 number, and while opening the cursor, what I will do is while opening the cursor, I have to mention my parameters like this. P underscore P1 number. This is what we have to do. This is called parameters cursor. This is the logic of parameters cursor. Now open operation, and then of course we require a loop because we want to get multiple records. I'll just say loop end loop and fetch operation into your key variables, header ID, pickup code, and currency code. Let us close the cursor after the loop, right? And we can just print the appropriate information. We just print the appropriate information, right? So header ID, we want to print three values. So header ID, pickup code, and currency code. And this mention exit when what is the cursor percentile not found. Cursor percentile not found. So what where we have to mention this one? This has to be available after the fetch operation, right? So the fifth record will not, I mean the last record will not get repeated. Got it?
Yeah, that exit is for the loop, right? Not for the cursor, right?
Exit is for the loop. Yes, correct. Exit condition is for the loop. But here what you mentioned when exit when cursor name percentile not found. Cursor percentile name not found. Got it?
Mm. Mm.
So now this is quite general, like there are different ways of writing the same logic. What I will do is I'll show you one more program. I'll try to show you one more program, which will be quite easier one. The requirement is same, but I'll try to show in a different way. Okay? So I'll copy the same code and I'll open another worksheet, open SQL worksheet. So I'll say exit cursor in 2 underscore 1, 2 underscore 2 or something like that, which is very the same. What I will do is this particular logic is totally same. So what I will do is instead of having this particular basic loop, instead of using the basic loop, I'll use another loop. I'll try to use another loop. Observe that. For record of PO in, okay, you just mention the cursor name and does not require this open operation also and does not require this close operation also. Okay. What I mentioned here, I just mentioned a for loop. I just mentioned a for loop followed by in clause followed by the cursor name, right?
Mm.
And just mention this one here. We have to mention what you have to mention here. You have to mention record header dot. So there is no there is no need to declare this temporary variables also. There is no need to declare this temporary variables also now. Okay, and just removing them also. 1 minute, 1 minute. You don't enter. This is not required at all now. So how do you print the data then? I just mentioned this one. Record PO dot. What is that? Lookup code and then currency code. Got it? Now what will happen is, so if you remember the for loop syntax what we discussed earlier, so when you use a variable in the for loop, it does not need to declare that variable explicitly. That is the first logic. It does not need to declare that particular variable explicitly. By default, the for loop will initialize and we just need to use, we can directly use it without having any declaration, right? And after that, what we mentioned, for a particular variable in, followed by I just mentioned the cursor name. I just mentioned the cursor name. So what will happen is it's nothing but a range. So entry condition, exit condition is automatically done by the for loop itself. So the record underscore PO operation, what will do is when it goes on looping, the record underscore PO will perform the fetch operation by default. The for loop will perform fetch operation by default, and record underscore PO will have all the current records every time. So we got some error. What is it doing here? Syntax error. Expected semicolon. Line number 8.
W-
Record
What
underscore.
is this?
Yeah.
After 4, you have put RECPO, right? What is that REC underscore PO?
That is a simple. It's a temporary variable. That's it. You can have any name there. It's a temporary variable which is holding the record of your cursor. Which is holding the record of the cursor. Your fetch operation will return you one record, right? The fetch operation will return
Mm.
you one record. So now in the earlier case, if you observe, for every fetch operation we clearly fetch operation followed by the list of column names, right? We just mentioned the list
Mm.
of column names. Instead of mentioning that column name, I just mentioned a single variable. This is a record variable. That is why I mentioned REC. It's a record variable. A record variable can handle multiple columns. A record variable can handle multiple columns. Right? There is some syntax mistake here. Yeah. Now let's try. See, because of simple parentheses, it gave that error.
Okay.
Okay.
So uh, REC underscore PO will be like the cursor only, right?
No, no. This is a data type. This is here. This is a variable. It's a variable which is holding all the data. I mean to say, it's a see. In normal in a PLSQL, we have two things. Okay, we have something called like a simple data type. We have something called composite data types. A simple data type is nothing but like it's kind of like your number, varchar, date, right? These are called simple data types. Now in this composite data type, what will happen is a single record variable, let us say a variable called record underscore people, which can hold multiple values. Nothing but I can have items like this, like a number data type. I can have like a varchar data type. I can have date data type. Nothing but this record underscore people at any point of time can hold one record of these set of values. It can hold one record of these set of values.
Mm.
So now in our case, that is what happening here. Record underscore keyboard, it is holding one record of that particular data type which is written to the cursor. The cursor, see, this particular cursor will hold multiple records, but at any point of time it will fetch you only one record, right? That is the logic. The cursor will,
Mm.
when you perform fetch operation, it will return you one record of the set of columns which are available in the select query. So in our case, C underscore get pivot data will return you one particular query when you perform one particular record when you perform fetch operation, and that particular record can be held by this record underscore pivot by default. It does not need to declare explicitly. But let us say if you want to declare explicitly also we can do it. I'll show you that logic also. What I will do is, so for loop, okay, you are clear with the for loop, right? Or any doubts here?
Mm.
Any doubts or?
No, no, it's okay.
Okay. So the same logic again, I'll consider the same logic, the basic loop logic, but what I will do is I'll declare a record data type. I rather than declaring this temporary data type, all these things, I'll remove all these things. I'll remove these things. But what I will do is I'll declare a variable of row type. See here. L underscore record underscore. See, the name is just a name, okay? It's not that because of variable name like REC is working. It's not like that. Just to understand the record, we just always prefer to mention REC data. So what is the data is expecting? I just mentioned, I just say percentile row type. That's it. One more. Now here what I will do is, see here, fetch operation followed by, you just need to mention like this. You just mention only your record variable. Does not need to mention your all the variables. I just mentioned record variable. Nothing but it is happening now. It is performing record by record copy. By default, it is performing record by record copy. So now you just need to mention your variable record name dot. What is the data? What is the this column name? This column name. Okay. Sorry. So here what we're trying to do is generally this is what we try to do because in a normal real-time requirement it may return 15 columns or 20 columns, and also it may change most of the times. So we cannot declare every time. Again, we cannot rewrite the program every time, right? So that is what we prefer is we just simply declare a row data type. So what will happen is if you change the column name, of course it may affect a little bit, but not much. Can you see? No issue. Same data.
Okay.
Got it?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, so this is what about like we are expressing. Yeah, we have few more samples. Like I think I'll try to show you one or two more samples next class, and after that we'll get into exception logic. Okay.
Oh.
Yeah. So we'll meet again on Saturday. Is it okay or
Yeah, Saturday.
okay?
Saturday morning,
Yeah. Okay.
6:30 a.m.
Yeah. Sure.
Yeah.